Hello boys and girls, welcome back to another English language lesson for grade 7. And today we want to look at the author's tone. What do we want to look at? The author's tone. So I need you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Now, what is the author's tone? The author's tone is simply an author's attitude towards a particular written subject. It is very different from the author's purpose. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, what is the difference? Now when we talk about the purpose to write, we're talking about our aim. So let's say my purpose to writing a piece, an essay, is to tell people that littering the environment is wrong. Now I'm going to write it in a way, now my tone is going to be serious. My tone might even be sympathetic because I might try to tell you, pretend you're the environment. Would you want persons to litter and destroy you? So the tone is very much different from the purpose. Now the tone of the article, essay, story, poem, novel, screenplay, or any other written work can be described in many ways. The author's tone can be witty, dreary, warm, playful, outraged, neutral, polished, wistful, reserved, and on and on. Now basically, if there's an attitude out there, an author can write with it. So when you think about the author's tone, think about the attitude that is conveyed through writing. Now I want you to think about yourself. Have you ever had a conversation with someone through text and they were like, I think that you are very rude? And you probably ask yourself, rude? How was I rude? But we must understand that the way we use words, they convey a message to the reader. Now, author's tone created. An author uses different techniques to create the tone he or she wants to convey. But the most important is word choice. It's huge when it comes to setting a tone. If an author wanted his or her writing to have a scholarly, serious tone, he or she would stay away from onomatopoeia, figurative language, and bright, flashy words. So word choice is very much important. So whatever attitude you want to convey through your writing, your word choice is very, very important. Now he or she would probably choose tougher vocabulary and longer, more complex sentences. If, however, he or she wanted to be witty and light, then the author would use very specific sensory language, sounds, smells, and tastes, perhaps colorful descriptions. So it all depends on what you want to convey. That's what you're going to put in your writing. Now let's look at passage number 1. Anyone can understand the confusion ancient traders experience trying to market their goods without a common standard of measurement. Imagine trying to sell grain in Egypt by the basket without having any comparison to make as to the basket's weight or volume. Such were the problems in early times when weight had to be guessed or measured against a standard of the weight of stones, seashells, seeds, or grain. Now I'm going to read it back again for you, and I want you to pay attention. Pay attention to the word choice of the author. Anyone can understand the confusion ancient traders experience trying to market their goods without a common standard of measurement. Imagine trying to sell grain in Egypt by the basket without having any comparison to make as to the basket's weight or volume. Such were the problems in early times when weight had to be guessed or measured against a standard of the weight of stones, seashells, seeds, or grain. Now, in developing the passage, the organizational pattern used by the author could be described as, in developing the passage, the organizational pattern used by the author could be described as simple listing, time order, example, cause and effect, compare and contrast. What is your answer? All right, now if you chose C, you are correct. We have example. Now the sentence signals description. It does not indicate parts to be analyzed, explanations of the standards of measurements, classification of these weights and measurements, or an argument in favor of a new measurement system. So we see a lot of examples being used in the passage. And the author does this so that we can understand the point that he's making. Problems also existed in terms of measurements of lengths. One of the earliest linear measurements was the foot, which first took its standard from the length of a human foot and later used the length of a king's foot as the standard. Archaeologists have traced people's attempt to grapple with standard units of measurement from the ancient Egyptians' attempts to reset precise property lines after flooding out the Nile River to biblical times. When a cubit was the standard unit of length, the cubit took its standard from the distance between the end of the elbow to the end of the middle finger, usually about 18 inches. The Romans defined the inch as the width of the thumb and the mile as 311,000 paces. The problems involved in using such measurements are obvious. Imagine trying to set new, more accurate standards among people who hung on tenaciously to existing standards. When the Romans conquered ancient Britain, they brought their standards of measurement along and imposed them on the people. Consequently, some of these standards have survived to the 20th century. The British imperial system of weights and measurement evolved from many sources and became fairly well standardized by the 19th century. The standard yard and pound were kept in the Houses of Parliament. However, when the Parliament building burned in 1834, the standards were destroyed. British scientists then began to press for a more uniform standard for the gallon, the pound, and the yard, which could be used in the entire British Empire. This made trading, buying, and selling much more uniform. No question. The tone of this passage can be described as angry, confused, formal, informative, ironic. What is your answer? D, informative. Now this passage is straightforward. Its use of a language is not colorful, formal, sarcastic, or confused. Now what do you find? In that passage, it gives us a lot of information, a lot of things I didn't even know, and I'm quite sure it's the same for some of you. So we learn this whole rich history of measurements and how measurements have developed over time. Now let's look at passage number 2. One of the industrial giants who changed American society was Henry Ford. Born on a farm in Michigan in 1863, he grew up to bring forth some of the most revolutionary improvements in automotive technology in the early 20th century. His outstanding mechanical ability led him to become interested in the new automobiles in the early 1900s. Though he did not invent the automobile, he improved upon everyone else's designs. He was a person who believed in inexpensive, efficient production. So he established standards for his plant and workers. He also standardized and produced many new auto parts for his Ford Motor Company cars. Then he studied the workers' problems and built an assembly line, the first of its kind in America. The ingenious improvement led to mass production of thousands of automobiles per year. In fact, his plants had produced 15 million Model Ts by 1927. Ford's personality was not all thrift, efficiency, and ingenuity. However, he was a man who was cold and who could not keep pace with the competition due to his own rigidity. His company suffered because of his desire to maintain the status quo instead of meeting and beating the competition by changing his product. Finally, he saw that he must change or lose out. Therefore, he introduced the 8-cylinder engine and once again took over the automobile market. Ford left a legacy of millions of dollars, millions of jobs for American workers, and millions of satisfied customers. Question 1. In developing the passage, the organizational pattern used by the author could be described as simple listing, time order, example, cause and effect, compare and contrast. What is your answer? All right, now if you said C, you are correct. This passage contains many examples of Ford's contribution to society. It does not contain a listing or cause and effect. Although the passage does begin with the year of Ford's birth, it is not totally in time order. So once again, we see all these examples being produced about his business life, his business ethic, and we even saw the fall of his business. Question 2. The tone of this passage can be described as optimistic, formal, serious, critical, sympathetic. What is your answer? C. All right. Serious. The passage is serious rather than formal, critical, optimistic, or sympathetic. The sentences are mostly objectively written. They do not include many value judgments. So we see it's very serious in the way the author approaches this piece of work, talking about Mr. Ford's life. So I hope you are paying attention to how word choice really helps us to understand the author's tone. Now, homework. I want you to research a list of words that can be used to describe an author's tone. I'll go that again. I would like you to research a list of words that can be used to describe an author's tone. And secondly, I'd like you to write a paragraph on an issue of your choice where your tone is apologetic and appreciative. So you are going to write this paragraph and your tone should come across as apologetic and appreciative. Now I want to thank you boys and girls for participating in class today. I hope you had a great time and I really hope that you understand the concept. Until we meet again, this is Sir Jared and I'm out.
Thank you.